Alright, kiddos. Who's ready for scary stories to tell in the dark? Okay. Today's story, we'll be reading The Russian Sleep Experiment. Ready, my pupils?
Yes.
Alright. Let's begin. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so then the gas wouldn't kill them because it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows in the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water, and a toilet, and enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained about having been promised falsely that they would be freed if they submitted the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a dark aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and ultimately began whispering to the microphones in one-way mirror portholes. Oddly, they all think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over the comrades, the other subjects in captivity, with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was the effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued to scream, was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or didn't react to it. They continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped, so the whispering into the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since it was possible they thought it would be since they thought it would be impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 were still alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people could consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, they did something that they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives, and used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from captives that were afraid dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will warrant one of you your immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response. "We no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any further response, it was used an intercom and finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the intercom began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was open, and soldiers sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers. what they was inside. Four of the five subjects were hardly alive, although no one can rightfully call it the state of any of them in life. The food ration past day 5 has not so much as been touched. There are chunks of meat from the dead test subject's thighs just stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicate the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth, as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of position and angles of the wound indicated that meant all four indicated that if not all of them were self-inflicted. The abdominal organ and the rib cage of all 4 test subjects had been removed, while the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place. The skin and most of the muscles attached to the rib cage have been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the rib cage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning around on the viscera but still living bodies of the test subjects. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen to be working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent what they were digesting was their own flesh they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still, many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and ultimately begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subject put up a fierce fight and of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off an artery and his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives, if you could count the ones that committed suicide in the week following the incident. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of morphine and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arms of one doctor. When Hard was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he bled out to the point there was more air in his vascular system than blood. Even after stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone within reach and repeating the word more, over and over, weaker and weaker, until we finally fell silent. We're almost halfway there. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas demand to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative that had given him prepare for the surgery. He fought fiercely against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear through most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. It only took a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. An autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table found that his blood had tripled the level of oxygen. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in the struggle to not be subdued, most of them from the force of his own muscles that exerted on him. The second survivor had been first of the group to lost track of a few pages. first of the group of five that started screaming. His vocal cords destroyed. He was unable to beg or object to surgery, and only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought up near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested, reluctantly, that they'd try the surgery without anesthetic, and did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure, replacing his abdominal organ, attempting to cover that what remained of skin. The surgeon started repeating that it should be medically possible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon again, wheezed loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming it must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write his message. The answer was simple. Keep cutting. The other two subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well. Although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation, the surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subject could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The cleared their system in a normal short period of time, and soon they were trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given. I must remain awake. All three subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber, weighing determination of what should be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, an ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were placed back into the chamber with the placed back with the gas on. The researchers strongly objected, but they were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber, the subject connected to an EEG monitor and had a restraint pad for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling at the moment. It was slipped that they were being put back on the gas. It was obvious that at this point that all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. What's wrong? I'll take a break. All right, take your time. You're okay, man?
I need my phone. I got something at 8 o'clock.
Hold on, we're almost done. Crap.
It's on 2%, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's 19.
Yeah, I need
Hold on. Can I finish this? We got like a paragraph left. All right. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might. First left, then right, then left again for someone to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off the pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be watched from EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brain waves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably, as it looked he was repeating sudden brain death before returning to normal. They focused on paper scrolling out of the brainwave monitor. Only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut at the same time his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of a deep sleep, and flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flatlines as the one who just died from falling asleep. The commander given the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew out his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, and turned his gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed, as the remaining members of the medical team and research team fled the room. "I will not be locked in here with these things. Not with you!" he screamed at the man strapped to the table. "What are you?" he demanded. "I must know." The subject smiled. "Have you forgotten so easily?" The subject asked. "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within all you, begging to be free at every moment of your deepest animal minds. We are what you hide from your bed every night. We are what you sedate in the silence and paralysis when you go in that nocturnal vision where we cannot tread." The researcher paused, then fired at the subject's heart. No, and then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out. "So nearly free." Hope you don't have nightmares.
Now you can breathe again. It's like,
Damn straight I can breathe again. Some of my own saliva got on my face because it got wet. Good night, bro.